Okay, guys, it's time to play that fun game. Where are we at? I want you to mention over in the comments where you think that we're at. I'm going to put this one out live so you can put it over there in the comments, but I'd like for everybody to join and try to guess where we're at. Take a look at this. See what you notice about it. What you notice is missing, but what is also there. Where are we at? Coffee for you. Coffee for the soul. So I need some comments over there on the side. Just take a guess. No need to be embarrassed in any way, shape, or form where you think we're at. Where does this come from? What is its possible inspiration? Is there an inspiration? Is there just a commonality? Where are we at? That's strange, huh? I know a lot of you are thinking Egyptian. And that's easy to see. It's sitting in the pose of an Egyptian scribe, and though it's missing the arm that comes down here, they believed it definitely did that, did a hand thing, and it was holding a staff, and this hole that's in there is still holding that. That's the side of what would have been the hand, and that there would have been possibly a plaque that was written here upon it that said certain things. This is perfectly square. That's around the bottom. It's perfectly square. And it's like 4 times as long as it is tall, and they believe it used to set on another dais. Let's get a little closer look. So tell me what you think where we're at. So you probably say northern Egypt, or that probably comes to mind, huh? Maybe that's what an Egyptian warrior wore, because there's really not very much showing this type of look. Now at this time, this buckled and cubited or cubed leather armor, which is sewed to another piece of fabric that is behind it and draped over the shoulders and held. And it even looks like he's got a backpack type of thing, but that might have been built into the monument thing, and there might have been definitely more to this sticking up, along with a head that would have been here. It's too bad we don't seem to have that head anywhere. It's almost like somebody took it off someplace, and makes you wonder if it isn't sitting in a museum someplace, some exhibit somewhere, and people are just in a shelf someplace in the back room where they don't know what it goes to. If they get a good look at this, they might make some connections. Where are we at, guys? I've given you a few minutes, you know. Let's take a closer look over here, for they show that he used to have an arm that came and crossed across his chest, and then had the other arm that came out. So you can see the arm that comes out here, and the crosshatch pattern that was on it like a cubes. But then you notice that there's this diamondish pattern. that's in here, elongated diamond pattern. It's over this chest piece. Can you see that? And now it has a cuffed shirt here that's put on too. Apparently more durable and thick than a small little tunic type thing that it's depicting. You can see where the hand used to be, but it got broken off for a reason. Perhaps it was making a hand gesture or holding an object, it looks like. There are people that think that this thing used to hold a shield that was here, draped across his belly, and then there was not a writing tablet like you see on all the Egyptian scribes thing, but this was a warrior and he had a shield, and it was a well decorated shield, and it didn't make it. Alright, it did make it somewhere else. But that's just conjecture. What do you think? Where are we? Anybody know? Usually about now, people probably have it. Don't know if you can really see it, but here there's a belt, and then there are straps that go down, straps that go down, straps that go down, and he's wearing a skirt type or a Celtish type skirt wear. Now this is definitely thought of to be a male, of course, right here. Where are we at? Look at that square bottom there that's on it. And you can see how the foot going low, and the way that they did it, they actually chipped out extra here and made a beveled part for his foot to be sitting on there. So he's sitting on this ledge, resting his foot up on there in this comfortable pose. Well, if I told you they found this in Troy, then this was one of the Trojans. I'm not saying that, I'm just putting it out there. What do you think about that? It'd be kind of odd if you found it there. But you might be able to, through the Greeks or something, make a connection to the symbolic look of this. Well, what if I was to tell you that this was found in India? Yeah, what if I was to tell you it's found near one of the old places like Mohenjo-Daro or something like that? That'd be kind of weird. But you know, Egypt took out quite a distance that way, as well as taking out all the way up into the Scythian lands. What if I told you this was found in a dolmen way out in the Scythian lands and areas, in Sogdian, people of that area, or over farther? What if I was to tell you this was close to the Tarim Basin mummies and kind of like the terracotta warriors? What do you think about that? No? Definitely looks Egyptian and scribish, but it has a different flair to it, definitely, right? Yeah, it also has that look of Buddha and tranquility, and you can definitely see it in the pictures that they depict of it over here. But you can see that just in the presence of it alone, and of course the crisscross applesauce, all familiar sitting with as a kid, and tranquility in this straight upper back pose. Definitely no slouch going on here. Is sitting at attention, but in a calm state. Well, let's look at another picture before we reveal this. For this is found in the same site, right here. Dated around the same time. Where are we at? Hopefully somebody's figured that out already, but then again, ooh, What if they had? And there's a duality of heads. There's been a lot said symbolically about this, and I agree with a few, and I agree with a few that contrast with each other, strangely. But this was set up on another dais. They don't know if it was wood, or they've made a few conjectures, but it looked like it had a cleft, like an arrow has in the back of it, and this set down into it and socketed into it. But all that's been busted up, and luckily the faces on either side are pretty well kept, and that's because it was sitting on this face the whole time and rubbed it off to nothing. And wouldn't you like to see what that looks like? And we can look at the other faces head on. You can see they have a definite eyeball that sticks out onto them, although this one is in shadow somewhat. A closed mouth, broad chin. It's funny, it almost looks like some of those death masks that you see in the old Canaanite burials that they did on people with clay and stuff. But what does this also remind you of? Anybody? Looks a little like it, huh? Those Göbekli, not necessarily tepe, but a few of the other tepes. Hoyuk looks a little Hoyukish, but I'm gonna give it away totally. I mean, where are we at? So far we've had those pictures. It's just some kind of oddity there. But let's try again. Let's take a look at that. It almost looks like that doesn't go with the same time frame. Well, I'll give you a time frame here. They're trying to say this is somewhere around 300 BC. So wherever it is. So definitely now you could almost say it's just on the edge of that Ptolemaic type of, perhaps. Maybe they found this in Egypt someplace, huh? You can go with that? Well, let's go with this. This is where this place looked like. And what they've done is the new thing that they've decided to do in a few different situations. I recently did one about unicorns, and they've done this mock-up and then put it with this background that looks very much like it, in situ, if you will, pseudo situ. But this is it, and it's not much of anything that you're seeing here. Well, these pillars would have set up in here and made this giant courtyard that's out here, and there's this complex that's built in here, and I'll be damned if it doesn't look like this has all been worked to counterset this end here long ago. And there's some interesting views around here. It's not too far from where these people live currently, for if you were to just go out of town a few kilometers from this local town, you end up here. Anything weird you notice about these pillars? That they were just destroyed, for one thing, but they have these distinct sockets that are in them, huh? And what they noted about these sockets is they're for skulls. Where are we at, guys? Anybody? For now, it looks like I've just spanned a whole bunch of thoughts right there. It doesn't make sense. You can see something that looks like, well, early Egyptian scribes had that look, and so we're going back into 2,500 to 3,000 years ago, and those pictures of those ones have those crystal blue eyes and stuff, and they're sitting at attention. Famous ones, Mitri and guys like that. So you could go with that. But they're dating this site at 300 BC, or a little more, and it's pre-Roman contact. That'll give you any hint. Pre-Roman contact to this place. Now, that doesn't mean the Greeks hadn't talked to him before, and that doesn't mean that a lot of other people hadn't talked to them before. But apparently, what we refer to as early Roman contact with these people came later. So this is before that. Any thoughts? I'm sure some thoughts have changed. I think that is interesting. Just looking at it, it makes you think it. And whenever I tell you where it comes from, you might think this is some form of import or something like that, but it's not made to think of in any way. And supposedly, I haven't checked in this totally, but they checked that this is done in a way where it's in a sculpture, but then the sculpture is plastered over, and the plaster's worked. And this plaster is equal to concrete, basically. Like the Egyptians have some incredible plaster work that's pre-concrete, but it's plaster that works as good as all the drywall on your house and things. No, it's better than that. It's stronger. Oh, I'm not going to go geopolymer on you, but they've tested this. And they say, well, this is made locally. Anybody? Are y'all ready for me to tell you? This is meant to be a warrior, and as you can tell because of the shoulder pads and the garb that's on here, but he's also Buddha and this sacred warrior. So you have a sacred warrior type thing, and now you start thinking of, it's got to have something to do with, it's got to be ancient China or something, or those people that were in that area, huh? Well, let me freak you out and swing you all the way the other way. For as we go all the way down, we find that where this is found out is this is a seated warrior from Roquepertuse. What is that? Roquepertuse, or Bouc de Rhône, on the Rhône River, and it's in France. Yeah, it's in the edge of France, near Marseille. Or Marcellus, as Americans know it. Let's take a look at this. Let me see if I can zoom in here and get it just right. You would probably pronounce it two different ways. You could either just say Roquepertuse or Roquepertuse. I had a French guy try to say how it was pronounced. I would think that he'd be somewhat closer. God, this is so brightened out. I wonder if I can get it to dim correctly. Let me see. There we go. So, Roquepertuse. The Acropolis at Roquepertuse is a historical religious center for the Celts. It is located near the city of Valo, north of Marseille. So let's see if it'll show where this is at. Well, there's this beautiful Castile that's set right up here that's still, and this beautiful arch, but where's Marseille? Let's see if it will show it. No, it's going to show beautiful towns and off province, and you can see these cathedrals that are built here and so on that leads the church. And near there, a beautiful near Alp city that's growing there in that region of southern France. But Roquepertuse had no domiciles available for worshippers and has been used as a sanctuary where only priests may have lived permanently. So it's seemed to be let's go with monk colony, if you will, since we have a Buddha representation with us. Something along that line, where we can understand it today. Shaolin Temple, etc. But we do know that the special domicile of the priests even to this day is something quite different, and we in fact go into their house whenever we go to worship in most of these situations, in most of every religion. So it's not too different, but let's look at this more. It was destroyed by the Romans in 124 BC, was discovered in 1860. Most of the excavations were done in 1923 by Henry de Guerin Richard. Officially, the findings have been dated to the 3rd century BC. I want to interject now, like I usually do, and tell you that is pre-Roman contact, but officially this one part is dated at that, and then they tried to blanket the whole site. But one finding showed something as early as 2200 BC, but they wanted to call that, what was the words? An egregious statistical error. What? Oh, well, there was some burnt wood, but it didn't have anything probably to do with people. Well, there's a bit of a tell environment here going on, and they don't want to destroy it to go down deep, and they're not willing to do much other than having dug out a few areas and then claim the whole thing is being built at the same time. And while it looks like it may have had some rebuilding to it, there's what's that word, discrepancy on the dating. This age has been established based on Celtic expansion in the area, what took place around the same time. However, the clothing and gestures of certain statues found at the site suggest that the date from the 5th or 6th century BC. Oops. Now, these statues are distinguished by their unique seated position, comparable to the upright and cross-legged seated position found in statues depicting of the Buddha. And of course, Gautama Buddha, I've shown you before, they said that he did not have slanted eyes. They refer to him as bulging eyes in blue. Some depictions show him with red hair and conversing back and forth and so on, but don't need to get into that. But Buddha statue, but in some other ways it looks like that Egyptian scribe. And we made the comparison to scribes and Buddha, and talking about a few different times, like our enlightenment videos, and basically just about the scribes themselves. A platform of 50 meters by 22 meters paved with flat stones, including a couple of reused headstones, divided in the middle by a staircase made of large blocks of stones. Stone walls, so it went to a second level as part of this. Stone walls to the left and to the right of the stairs formed a terrace, probably one of several, which had originally belonged to the complex. On the platform was what is variously called a portal, or door frame, or portico with pillars of limestone. Its columns had cavities in which human stone masks as well as human skulls had been placed. Its lintel was carved with the heads of 4 horses. Does any of this sound familiar? In addition, decoration in paint. At the top of the lintel was a limestone statue of a bird of 60 centimeters by 60 centimeters, which has been called a goose or a swan, but is now thought more likely to be a raptor or a vulture type of bird. Some of this has got to ring home, but what's odd about that idea, other than the 4 horsemen, is that there are horses in this area, and this is well after horses had came in the first runnings of or actually the second migration of Proto-Indo-Europeans into here, so we can get this idea. But human skulls and the cavities, and one report said that there was a large number of them, and I couldn't get an exact number on how many portices and hole cavities in these pillars they're supposed to be around the whole complex. One guy who was just talking about the site said there were over 40, and that this venerated ancestors back thousands of years. like they had kept it from from before. There's another story even leading up in a minute whenever I show you this part of the video. But some of this is just folklore, and some of it's odd claimings, and it makes you think that this must have been a melding of the people, for they have a claim of coming to the area, but they have a claim that they've always been here. And that makes sense in two folds, and really only in that way, that they are the very much same or similar people, and that they had been here, and that they came back and blended back together. But that dual-faced androgynous sculpture of limestone, and it is said to be a statue of Hermes. Yeah, that's what they call it. And in this French paper that they had about it, it says it's a statue of Hermes. And the duality of the brain. So let's go with this esoterical thing here. With the yin and yang of life, with the duality of brain, with the thing that's on either shoulder, choosing good or bad, the balance of yin and yang itself spawns forth the third head that's all screwed up. Well, it didn't used to be all screwed up. But this idea of, spawning out of the head is seen in a Greek god too before, and Athena in this situation. But let's go back to this duality of the heads. This is much like the drama. Of course, one's not laughing and one's crying, for this is not the extent of drama. But if they had their hand up under their chin on both sides, and slightly dipped heads, like the thinking man, looking two different ways, and then they had this head come out of that, that might show you a third reality. And there's a triad situation there too. Now, other people have said that that's a male and female. Let's take a look at this while we're looking at it. That's a male and a female. That I think this is the male and this is the female. And the male works on his left side of his brain, the female works off her right side of the brain, and off working in conjunction, they form it. But this also is a symbology of just a male and a woman, and then a child. And this could be Joseph and Mary and then Jesus and whatever, and you could go a lot of ways with it, and you could tell somebody later, even though this is very pagan, that this has all types of other connections, couldn't you? Right? Now, there's also two statues of a figure in a seated Buddha-like position, and this is just one of them that's shown here. And that's kind of neat. And you think it kind of unique. But is it unique? For you can find it in the Orient, and in India, way up in the Himalayas, all the way through the Orient, like I was saying, into China, sweeping across, and I'll be damned, you can find it over here near Marseilles on the other side, on the Atlantic side there, France, sitting, yeah, that's where this is at, and I think the video will show you the spot. First interpretations of archaeologists was this was a secluded sanctuary, but the latest findings from various multidisciplinary studies, such as trying to use symbology and everything, suggest that it was an agglomeration of about half a hectare, with a sanctuary to the north, as well as a bulwark of protection. Now, the site is important in part because it provides essence or evidence of the Celtic head cult described in the Greek and Roman accounts, and this is just ancestor veneration. And it can be twisted into barbarians and all this other type stuff. When we look at who they called a barbarian, it was people that wouldn't shave their face regularly, quite often, and people that would not speak Greek, making them learn their language, as if the Greeks didn't already have a few under their belt. So the site is near another Celtic Roman site at Etremont, which I might go into in another video, which had similar relief sculpture of several severed human and horse heads, as well as skull niches carved into these pillars. Also see the Oppidum for other nearby archaeological sites approximately the same historical period. And so we're going to go checking that out because it's a large fortified Stone Age settlement associated with a Celtic late Henne culture, emerging around the 2nd, 1st centuries BC, spread across Europe, stretching from Britain and Iberia, to the west edge of the Hungarian plain to the east. Oh, yeah, and did it ever dip down? Yeah, well, I've shown you that they've actually had Celts in Egypt and used them as warriors in certain fights, so isn't that crazy? And here's this escarpment that's here, and there's an ancient road that's supposedly here that runs all the way through, and you can see how the trees have only grown in certain parts. The walking path is here, but there's this ancient road that's coming out of a town. Later you'll see this town that I'm talking about, but it's a few kilometers away, so it's the road to nowhere. Here's part of an ancient wall, and here's part of what they show you at the plaques at the sites, that they've done in one of these very long-lasting edifices here that show you stuff. It's no longer carved in stone, and the faces, and you can see that this face. Now you see that this guy's eyes are closed, and the other eye they're open, and that also has to do with this telling of a god whenever the god's eyes are open and the god's eyes are closed. Of course, this has to do with sun worship and whether the sun's there and it's not, and a reflection. There's that body that's there, and here's a small look at the portion of the site with the pillars, but it really doesn't show up well, and they can show you where it is as Marcel, but we're going to take a closer look at that. Roquepertuse. And so they've said his eyes are closed, and I know his eyes are open, but they're just not ringed and bulging like the one on the other side. But notice that they are ringed around the rims of the eyes, like in Sumerian sculptures and so on that we find. But notice he's bald also. That kind of a long, somber face. And so here we can look out across a field and see that this terrace work that's done here at 1 level and 2 and 3, but then this whole wall, it's been built around it in parts of it. Now they say there was a whole wall behind us now. Right behind where we're standing now is a whole wall that came around, and you can tell how this dips back down. So this whole area is kept in a little sunk in area, and they built larger walls around it. But this wall here got destroyed when the Romans came through and pushed through and busted it all up, and didn't really care about the other side, but it was pretty much dirtified on top of regular embankments. Oh, and something neat too, botanists guys have said that the dandelions here somewhat unique, that it maybe somebody genetic messed with them, and there's this double thistle effect that happened on some of them, but there's a couple of other plants that look like they've been messed with. Maybe you can see that double thistle effect there. And although somebody else said that that happens a bunch of places. Well, this odd thing about folklore and Johnny Appleseed, and I don't know if you've ever been a kid with dandelions. You can eat dandelion, by the way. It's you can make dandelion salad and so on. And you know that sunflowers that are on it, then they call it dandelion, and it has that connection too. But you can blow one, and they blow quite a distance away and can get caught in the wind. Yeah, and you really don't want them in your yard, do you? They're kind of prickly. Well, they say this variety isn't so prickly. It's a little more succulent. but there are variations on the theme of it. And these purple flowers, and there's two variations of them. And there's something about those flowers coming up, I guess. But so here's just one part of it, and it shows you where they still had this embankment and this wall, these canals coming through here, built around secondary walls. But all of this structure that's in here, secondary, climbing up to it, and what we're looking at was we were standing right here, looking out against it. Or wait, am I? No, not yet. Yeah, that's where we are. So it's kind of perspective from there. And so you can see this ancient stonework, and it's not fantastic. It's not monolithic. It's not strange shaped and then smoothed off totally and everything here. But they believe this was plastered with that other stuff in some ways too. They don't talk about colored. Oh, and I missed it right there too. That picture, if you notice how orange the soil is around there, they know that this place also must have had large amounts of iron slag in certain areas, just out of nowhere. Yeah, and you can see all of these buildings that are around here, separate, built up walls. Some of these stones are huge, though. But a stone of that size is just a few tons. And even the biggest ones that are over here, maybe breaking that weight. But look at the terraced work. Step work out of semi-natural stones, but gotta go back a minute. So these semi-natural stones, but if you look at this up here, that's definitely been worked, and it's almost been smooth, but then it's not so good right there, but this has almost been smooth. Now there are places here that they have a mortarish set that's in them, and other places where they use even small stones and it's only done with stonework. And this is looking into the site down through this runway that's here, but you would know it's here. It's right over this hill and in that little valley that's right back over there, right tucked down in there. And you just almost wouldn't know it's there because it dips down and once you come up over those hills. And so it's almost up on this little hill, kind of set in, I don't know, like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, kind of this little plateau, set apart little place. I'll give you another connection to something like that soon. Squared off buildings. So here's that connection to that. For there's another little folk tale that says that that was a local volcano god that they adopted from where they had come from, wherever that was, but it wasn't far away, and that right there is just like that Devil's Hill, Devil's Mountain, Devil's Tower that's in the Americas, except for it's got a lot more dirt around the bottom of it, and it's nowhere near as big or as tall. It's only about 1/6 the size of it, but it definitely is that same type of escarpment thing that's built there. And the old story is that they've been keeping this god appeased since before, and he threw up all of the life on the land. And of course people go, well, that's got to be some early folklore tale and everything. Well, volcanoes erp up, and then volcanic soil over a long time becomes something. Now this guy that was telling you that had the thick half English accent, Irish type accent, was talking about this, was telling me that this place, and I swear he said 16 million years ago, not 60 million years ago, but 16 million years ago. But of course we know hominids have only been around for around 3.2 million years or so, or in that range, and at a sentient state probably over 300,000 years. But we're not approaching anywhere near that state. But I guess you could claim that you're keeping it at bay because it hasn't gone off like other volcanoes that continue to redo. But this is one of those ones that plugged itself, and long, long ago. But I just think it's neat that it's been there. Oh yeah, there's another. The folklore that this guy said was that they themselves had built ramps up to the God's Mountain thing, and that they bring gifts up to it and everything. So it makes you think that you need to go up there and do some archaeology and see what you can find in there. But I don't think this hill is unnaturally built in any way, but it very well may be. There may be something you'll be able to look at and look at LiDAR and things and tell something that's out of that. But that's just another thing too. And I wonder how old that road is that's been through there, and that one that's found in the other place. And so here's a graphed out look of the way they think it would look, and they put it on this cracked porcelain, which looks real neat. And there is definitely soil that's oranged in the area, and they even just can't keep from putting it in here. But this escarpment and around it and everything else, and the conical type tower here that's set. And I have to say that this looks like, you know, half Great Zimbabwe, half something else. It has that look to it. Now they had found this sculpture here, which I wish I could show you, but it's the other setting pose. But it almost looks like it has a lizard head on it in this picture that's here. Here's the duality heads, and over here is where I found the 4 horses that are set up in there. And they know this has all been worked to a point and left at that. And you can look over at a valley from here, but there's the edge of that village right there. This is almost the same view we had a minute ago. There's a well. It's portaled, but it was desecrated, and looks like they had thrown a stuff in there, and no one ever has excavated out the well and see if there's anything in the bottom of it. For quite often, whenever they kill something like this, they throw people down the well and throw rocks on top of it and all kinds of stuff. I don't know if they even have bothered to look. I see it full up. I'm sure that well wasn't 6 foot deep. I'm sure it was probably 30 to 40. And seeing as how it's up on a slight escarpment to reach tablatured water and to hold it, that'd have to be quite a puncture there. And there's some stonework that's around it too. And there's that wall that has got all skeptical people with it too. It's been worked to a certain point, and some people say that there was something built up to that and went all the way up, and there are some holes that are in here, and there's some lined up there. At this line, you can see a line across here, and that would have been 1 story and 2 story, and things were built up against here, and then 3rd story, and then they used that up top to be able to go out of the situation. But this is all torn down and gone, and it was wood. That could be a grave. Here's another little altar type situation too that's built up in one of the places that's left, and it's weird, but a staircase leads up to it and it just goes to nothing. In a house setup or anything, you'd say, oh well, that must be the bathroom or something along that line. And then there's this great wall that's here, but again there's this dual terracing that's above it, and then this surrounding, and this one lone tree. Some paleobotany shots. Oh, and a strange thing, appears that naturally there is this built-up mud that's there that hooks up to a shale, and in that shale, I don't know if you see it, but you see this flat that's hooked up into it right here, and that piece right there, and this piece right here, and those pieces, well, they say this piece is pottery. Yeah, they said it was pottery. And all these shells that are here and impregnated in that rock. And what's weird is they try to date this rock, and it dates it like 30,000 years old, and there's no way that pottery is that old. And so maybe the shells are 30,000 years old, and they did some plaster thing with a bunch of shells and mud and let it solidify. But the idea that I was presented is that they took a chunk of this rock off of this over here and sent it up to somebody, and they said, yeah, it's like 30,000-year-old rock. It's not that old. Oh, not that old. Okay, well, it's this man-built wall thing in this one. What? Oh, and this plant too. I forget what he said the name of it was, but it's like it's transplanted there because it's found there, and it's like 140 miles away from other stuff, and that somebody transplanted it in that area along with a few other of those plants that are going. Of course, you don't find this out unless you talk about paleobotany and things like that, like when I was talking about the Scythian sites and how they had found hemp and rope and stuff, and I was trying to make that connection, never could, and then a few of them have now come out with it now that they've done that secondary work on it. So here's a look at some of the pottery that's there, and this flat dish that would look like a gold panning dish, flat edged rim, and then more of a saucer dish, more of a bowl, and then more of a real soup bowl variations on it here, somewhat thin, very high quality. And again, there's that style, by the way, that's like corded ware, where you can see the corded top of it and around the edge, and it even has that lip loop into it. And this has been found in the Phoenicians. So there's a connection. This is not their pottery. And so whenever you see this pottery here, you can go, oh, well, some of the pottery they traded were these people's pottery, apparently, and what goods they would make. Maybe they're trading something for olive oil. There's a lot of commodities that go with that. But then notice that this larger bowl here, which it'd be like a fruit bowl, something along that line, or a giant salad bowl, or maybe it was a large bowl to put all in and everybody got small bowls out of it. But see how the edge of this is made in a braided way. And that's another connection to the culture of people going through the Scythians and through, and the corded ware in the situation where they made it look like it was basket ware a little bit. And it wasn't basket ware, but they had made their own stoneware like basket ware. You follow me? On the lipping on those. It's no way a bell beaker. It's this freesia type plant that grows there. The botanist talked about that, and then it must have been procured and kept around that culture and everything, and they find it only right around there and not over the hillsides that are near there, this other purple plant. And so what was kind of noticed about it is that dandelion's been messed with, this other plant had been messed with, and apparently, gardened in some way, and then these purple plants, the sunflowers and these purple plants, and were kind of way concentrated in this area than there should have been. Here's some more of those purple plants, but also you can see these rock work